Well, today marks 20 years since 43 people were killed in a stampede at a packed Ellis Park stadium in Johannesburg. The tragic event took place during a Soweto derby match between Kaizer Chiefs and Orlando Pirates. We're joined now by soccer legend Benedict Vilakazi and Sport, Arts and Culture Department spokesperson Modisane. A very good afternoon to you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon to you and also good afternoon to the viewers.
Now I'm going to start with you, Tso. You had just scored the equalizing goal 20 years ago. The crowd went wild. And just thinking back, when did you realize that the noise, the cheers of celebration because of that goal were actually turning into screams because something had gone horribly wrong?
That night it was, I'll start by saying that night it was a different night altogether. And, the only time I've realized that there were people lying down, it's after I did a celebration after scoring an equalizing goal. And, that's when we've realized, because when we get to the center line, and then they call us together and say, look, we have to wait for a minute or two or maybe 5 minutes and then see what's happening, because there's bodies that are lying down there. So they just want to go and check that what's the situation, what's happening, and then take it from there. So, yeah, it's so difficult to talk about that night, because it's one of those nights where, especially me, after I scored an equalizing goal, it was not an easy thing for me to take it. But, the chairman and, also Miki also was there. They was also there, and they helped me a lot to understand that in life there's things that you can change and there's things that you cannot change in life. Mm-hmm. So if God decided that on this night, these people, that will their last night in the world, and then there's nothing that I can do. But the other good thing again is, even it's not easy to lose a person, but when you look at how the person died, or what happened to that person in terms of his losing his life, all those people, they lost their lives in the place where they loved Chiefs, they loved Pirates, they loved to watch us, playing, showing them our skills. And I think that was one thing that also kept me going, to say whatever that we're doing on that night, we are making them happy. So wherever they are now in their lives, they know that we did our best to make them happy.
I want to bring in Mickey, who you mentioned was also there. Just at what point, as a department, as organizers, did you realize that things were going wrong? I mean, there were about 30,000 people in addition to the capacity of the stadium, which was 60,000. Just give us a bit of a synopsis of the events as they unfolded that night.
Well, good afternoon. I think let me start first by saying that from the department, what we have issued a statement on behalf of our Minister Nakim Tetra, who came out here and said the tragedy that occurred at Ellis Park Stadium 2 decades ago, it's heartbreaking, and a disaster that shouldn't have happened. And as government, strict measures have been taken to ensure that tragedies of this nature, don't happen again. So since the recommendation of the Ngwepe Commission, the department has then issued the Safety at Sports and Recreation Events Act. Now, in 2010. Now, let's go back to the event. There were problems, yes. And in terms of the Safety at Events Act that has been issued, there are certain things which are no-nos that would never happen again, because that comes out of the recommendations of the Ngwepe Commission, and one of the recommendation was that there has to be coordination from the security cluster in general. That is the security that is looking at the parameter fencing from the first parameter to the second parameter and into the precinct. There has to be a risk categorization of the event. It has to be category A. Then that determines the number of safety personnel that must be there. Category B determines also the number of security personnel. And certain category events cannot take place during the week, because then that gives you a little bit of time in terms of allowing people access into the venue. So you would understand in this situation, when the match started, had it been 20 years ago, that game wouldn't have started up until 80% of the stadium was full. Because now in terms of the Act simply says that with coordination, you have to hold on to the match. If you see that FNB Stadium, which is a 90,000-seater, there is about 30,000 people, and then which is not even half the capacity of the venue, the game cannot start. You have to wait up until 70% or 80% of the spectators are inside the stadium. Then it allows a proper control in terms of movement, you know. Unfortunately, with this one, there was also the issue of counterfeit tickets. Now, in terms of the Act makes it very clear, and it's stipulated very well that we need to be able to make sure that there is no counterfeit tickets that are sold. Because if you produce any other event host, there are certain elements that must be part of the ticket, like your watermark, you know, like a certain element that you know that it cannot be frauded, and it cannot produce counterfeit tickets. Now, the Act as well simply says as well that there has to be a venue operational center, the VOC. There has to be the joint operational center, the JOC, whereby the categorization and all safety elements must be produced. Now here, unfortunately, 20 years ago, there were so many loopholes and there were so many challenges. And that's why also the issue of who's in charge. There has to be someone who's in charge of an event. The one will sign off on all activities of the event. Mm-hmm. And that person must be the one that must be held accountable should any disaster of this nature occur. So,
now, Mickey, just to jump in there, with regards to this Safety at Sporting Events Act that you've mentioned, have you seen perhaps arrests or a reduction in the amount of counterfeit tickets being sold at games like the Soweto Derby?
Yes, there has been quite a very significant change in relation to the events of this nature. As you would know that in terms of the Act as well, you cannot sell tickets a day of or either closer to the venue or a day before or either a day once the sold-out ticket is gone up. Mm-hmm. Now, that means that you open up for your sales of your tickets, especially for a derby, a month in advance or 2 months in advance, and people start buying. And then you're able to hang out the sold-out sign long in advance. So people, they know that we are now channeling you to alternative areas where you can view the event, you know. So with regard to the passing of the Act, definitely there has been a cap in regard to the issue of counterfeit, in regards to the issue of safety and control of the games. Mm-hmm. Because the event the Act even says to you there must be a commander from the South African Police Services in terms of the Joint Operational Center, which seats the emergency medical services, the Joint Operational Center. That's where the categorization of the event takes place. So there is coordination now. If the VOC commander is of the opinion that this game cannot continue because of the anticipated risk elements, then which means the game gets cut off. And unfortunately, it's the way the Act stipulates. Well, there are loopholes here and there, but as a government and as the department, we are gradually identifying those and will be making sure that we tighten up loopholes as possible.
Well, I want to bring back Zwane into the conversation. So earlier on, my colleague spoke to Arthur Zwane, who mentioned that sometimes when he thinks about the horrors that took place on that day, he finds himself somewhat haunted by that particular game, and he felt a bit responsible, if I may say that, for the people that actually came to watch a game that they loved, who ended up losing their lives. Did you actually receive counseling following that event? And did you have any family members in attendance? Because oftentimes players have family members coming to the stands, to the stadium, to watch in person.
Yes, I had my brother at the stadium on that night, and you know, after the game, when I tried to call him, his phone was off, and I was like, wow, what's happening now? And no, eventually it happens that then he called me back and said, no, don't worry, I'm okay, I'm coming to see you, and then he came to see me. Yes, at the team, the chairman made sure that I did get a counseling there, and they helped me to go through it, understand it, and understand life in general. Because we always think that things are very easy until you go through that. Then that's when you'll understand how difficult it is to face such a thing, especially with me, the worst part was that I scored an equalizing goal, and a lot of people, that's when they started to run to the field of play, and then that stampede. So it was not an easy thing, for me to live with it day by day. But thanks to the chairman to help me in terms of getting the counseling, and also supporters around, they were there for me. My teammates, everyone was there in terms of trying to talk to me, make me see this life with a different eye, not with the eye of me as so. And they helped me a lot to go through that. But every time when it comes that day, it's not something that it had just passed, and it also goes back to say, ish, I still have that picture
Yes.
of the game, of the people lying down there, seeing our chairman and the chairman of Kaizer Chiefs in the field of play, walking towards those bodies there. It was really not an easy night. So it's not something that comes and go. It always remain in me, because I always have that thing of saying, if maybe I didn't score in equalizing goal, maybe those people would be alive today. But again, going through the counseling, they put words in me and made me see and understand that I'm not God. Whether if I was gonna score an equalizing goal or somebody else was gonna score, God decided that that day this is what is gonna happen. So it doesn't matter who are you, but that tragedy was gonna happen anyway. So it's just one of those things that I just have to live with it.
Well, thank you for joining us. That was Benedict Vilakazi, who was the midfielder that actually scored an equalizing goal on that fateful day. We were also joined by the spokesperson of the Department of Sport, Art and Culture, Miki Modisane.